Hey VQers, I have next to me the most legendary triathlon coach probably in the world today, in Joe Friel. One of the, I don't know, you definitely don't know this, but one of the first books I've ever read was the Cyclist Training Bible. And a lot of the principles that I've learned and used for my own training, for other people that I've worked with, are firmly cemented in your fundamentals from that book, and I absolutely love it. So for all you VQers who want to get a really good idea, I know a lot of you have already read the books, the Triathletes Training Bible, the Cyclist Training Bible. They're absolutely wonderful for you Ironman athletes going along. You've heard me reference that book before on some of our VQ TVs. Now we have the author, the man who pretty much invented triathlon training in this country. Joe Friel is here with us. And I know a lot of you have a lot of questions, but the question I'm going to ask you is, at Vision Quest, we have a lot of athletes that have been training for several years. They're pretty good triathletes, and they really want to make that next jump. Some of them are just kind of right at that age group where they're kind of in the top 30%, but they want to get to the top 10% in their age group. Can you give us a couple of tips to really help push them that little bit?
Sure. I think the number one tip, Robbie, for anybody that I coach that really wants to be serious about the sport, is the most important thing you can do in your training is train consistently. It doesn't, having hard workouts is good. Having lots of volume is good. These are all good things, but the most important thing always is consistency. If an athlete does very hard workouts, but then takes several days off because they're tired, or they lose motivation because of how difficult the training is, or they can't fit in the workouts because they want to do these long workouts, but there just isn't time to put in a 3-hour, 4-hour ride, so they decide not to do it. That's the worst thing they can do. The most important thing to do is just simply train consistently, keep doing workouts on a real regular basis, and that has probably more to do with performance than anything else. Second, I would say for athletes, especially for experienced athletes, is the next most important thing is the intensity of their training. As endurance athletes, we tend to think that volume is the most important thing in our training, but it's really not. The most important thing really is intensity. You've got to get intensity right, and that doesn't mean going out and just training as hard as you possibly can. We're not trying to see how high your wattage can be or how fast you can swim or run. We're trying to get you to swim and run at target pace, at goal power. If you can do that, then you're on track to have the intensity right, and quite honestly, the duration is the easy part. Going out and putting in the miles, putting in the hours, putting in the yards or meters is really relatively simple. The hard part is making sure you get the intensity right when you're doing those workouts. And the closer you get to the race, the more like the race the intensity has to become.
So specificity, the closer you get to the event, the more specific to the intensities you're going to be performing at, it should be the bulk of your training, correct? Or at least the intensity-based part of your training.
That's exactly right.
So there you have it, folks. Consistency, we preach that a lot, and dialing in that right intensity. And I think through field testing, through understanding what the proper intensity is based on what the length of the event is, what your power and heart rate zones are, is how you dial in that intensity over time.
That's right.
Beautiful. Couple other things. I know you feel strongly about nutrition and diet, and you've written books about that as well. Broad strokes here. Couple of tips. Perfect nutrition. What are components of perfect nutrition?
Well, number one is following workouts, especially long workouts or highly intense workouts. The athlete has to recover quickly. That's really the key to performance in the next workout. Even if it's going to be an easy workout, you want to get some quality out of that workout, not just basically a walk or a noodle around the block on your bike. You want to get some quality out of it, maybe zone 2, but the key there is making sure you get carbohydrate in post-workout, and it may be a good idea to take in protein post-workout also. The research is a bit mixed on that, but it seems to be favoring taking in protein post-workout. The second thing I talk with my athletes about is once we get beyond the recovery phase of a workout, the recovery phase lasts as long as the workout lasted. So if you did a 2-hour bike ride, for example, the recovery phase lasts for 2 hours after the bike ride is over. So during that time, we're focused on getting in carbohydrate, especially from higher glycemic sources like starches, especially potatoes, rice, corn, so forth. Once you get past that stage, and the next stage is to start focusing on getting in micronutrients, vitamins and minerals especially, and those are found primarily in fruits and vegetables and lean animal protein. So at that point, I like the athletes really to move back to a really basic sort of diet. We're eating those three food sources primarily, with starches now taking on a lesser role in their diet, kind of like around the edges sort of thing, as opposed to the focus of their diet post recovery.
So carbohydrates following rides, a little bit less carbohydrates and sugars if they're not training much.
That's right.
Okay. Last thing is, as far as supplements and vitamins, give us one or two nutrients, vitamins that you think the general populace for endurance athletics or endurance athletes doesn't get enough of. We have to supplement.
Yeah. Really, I think probably the major one that I recommend to my athletes, there's actually two, but the major one is omega-3 oils. That's like fish oil is a good source of that. And that's a good supplement to be taking, because most of us don't get enough omega-3 in our diet. We get a lot of omega-6, and if the omega-6 is really high relative to omega-3, the ratio is out of balance, then inflammation becomes a problem. And so you have an Achilles tendon that acts up, and the inflammation won't go away because the omega-6 is just too high in your diet. So bringing up omega-3 will help to counter that. Omega-3 is hard to get in our diet, so omega-6 is very easy to get. The second supplement I suggest to athletes, and quite honestly, these are the only two I suggest at all, is in the winter months in cold places.
Vitamin D, right?
Vitamin D.
Yeah, CV cures. We get it right sometimes, right?
Vitamin D is difficult to get. The way you get it primarily is by making your own. You come in contact with the sun. You have your skin exposed to the sun, and your body produces vitamin D, which is necessary for health and vitality and all the stuff that goes into being a good athlete. But if you're covered up from head to toe or outside or training indoors, you're not getting enough sunlight. So therefore, in the wintertime, northern athletes probably need to be taking vitamin D also.
So vitamin D, omega-3s.
Yeah.
I like it. There you go, VQ. More with Mr. Joe Friel in the future.
Woo!